It's called Her Only Choice, came out in 2018, and it was directed by Crystal Gibson. I don't recommend this movie for anyone who is faint of heart or who can't deal with very, very intense subject matter. A woman is faced with a choice to fight for her life or sacrifice it for another. After years of infertility, a newly expected mother is diagnosed with a life-altering disease. So that reminded me of God's favor upon Hannah. She was loved by her husband. He also had another wife, Peninnah. She gave him a lot of sons and daughters and all this. You know how that was back in the day. They had multiple wives. He would still show favor to Hannah. So this made the other wife, Peninnah, jealous, of course. So the husband said to her, Hannah, why are you weeping? A lot of times, what I notice anyway, is that God moves when we are moved. When we come to him and we plead to him, he's moved by that. Like another movie I saw, this guy, he couldn't see that his family was not moved by material things. They wanted his love. They wanted his time. They wanted his compassion. You know, even his best friend was trying to get his attention. He wasn't trying to hear it. He wasn't trying to hear it until something happened, and then he was moved greatly. Then it brought everybody together, and everybody all of a sudden is praying without ceasing, and then God is pleased. Sometimes it takes that. So then Hannah pleads to the Lord. So intense was her emotion. God granted her request because, you know, he was pleased. In this particular film, she has to make a difficult decision, which I'll talk later on about. Another story too in the Bible, which is kind of similar. Imagine that, like, they've been dealing with, you know, the characters in the film have been dealing with infertility for such a long time. But in the beginning, when we're brought into the film, we see that her mother had also had an issue with sickness and disease. And so they are afflicted or torn between choosing between the mother's life and the child's life. But you know, that faith, and there goes that faith again. Faith in knowing that if it's God's will, you know, then both can be saved. And so it reminded me of, you may know it or you may not know it, the story of Solomon. King Solomon has to make a difficult decision in 1 Kings. We'll go to 1 Kings 3:16 through 28. Now, 2 prostitutes came to the king and stood before him. One of them said, "Pardon me, my lord, this woman and I live in the same house, and I had a baby when she was there with me. The 3rd day after my child was born, this woman also had a baby. We were alone. There was no one in the house but the 2 of us. During the night, this woman's son died because she lay on him. So she got up in the middle of the night and took my son from my side while I, your servant, was asleep. She put him by her breast and put her dead son by my breast. The next morning, I got up to nurse my son, and he was dead. But when I looked at him closely in the morning light, I saw that it wasn't the son I had born." The other woman said, "No, the living one is my son, the dead one is yours." But the first one insisted, "No, the dead one is yours, and the living one is mine." And so they argued before the king. The king said, "This one says my son is alive and your son is dead, while that one says, no, your son is dead and mine is alive." Then the king said, "Bring me a sword." So they brought a sword for the king. He then gave an order, "Cut the living child in 2 and give half to one and half to the other." The woman whose son was alive was deeply moved out of love for her son and said to the king, "Please, my lord, give her the living baby. Don't kill him." But the other said, "Neither I nor you shall have him. Cut him in 2. Then the king gave his ruling, "Give the living baby to the first woman. Do not kill him. She is his mother." When all Israel heard the verdict the king had given, they held the king in awe because they saw that he had wisdom from God to administer justice. Come on now here. Yes, a true mother is not going to want the child to be dead. What? That was clearly wisdom from God. That was wisdom beyond measure. That goes right back to this film here, Her Only Choice. All of the characters in the film had to get rid of their selfishness. They had to think about what was really important. For the most part, I think that everyone was thinking save the child. But I think that the main character had enough wisdom to get a second opinion. Now that was wisdom beyond measure. Wisdom beyond measure, what I mean by that is, for those of you that have dealt with breast cancer in your life, I commend you. Above all else, I pray that the blood of Jesus will cover anyone who is dealing with this disease. Jesus died on the cross for breast cancer as well. Check out that movie, Her Only Choice. Came out in 2018. Available on Tubi TV. Also on YouTube, but Tubi TV is clearer and less commercials, in my opinion.